In this video, we're going to be going over my modular gear wall panels, how much they actually cost to make, and more importantly, the 5 reasons why I personally am never going to be selling these. Let's jump right in. This is the modular gear panel system. There are 4 of these individual panels with a ton of different pegs and then little shelves as well. And it's really easy to calculate the actual cost of what these things to make because it just took half a sheet of 3/4 inch Baltic birch plywood. The sheet itself was a little bit under $100, so each of these come out to around $12 a piece. Super simple. They are 10 inches tall by 44 inches wide, and if you end up getting these files, I will have a ton of different variations of this to be able to fit not only your space, but also to be able to offer to different clients. If you're looking at these and you think you have to have a CNC machine to make them, that is completely false. It's just gonna obviously take a little bit longer using a drill and a jigsaw, and I'll have the DIY plans available if you buy that file pack as well. I was able to install these on the wall in less than 20 minutes and even put everything up in that time frame as well. It was super simple. You just really have to make sure you understand where these studs are on your wall, and I really only put in 2 screws into each of these panels. That for me was plenty enough to make sure they were in the wall and I didn't have to screw in a bunch of holes into the wall. So if I am taking these down right now, I only have to patch 8 very small screw holes. Like I said, these panels are made out of 3/4 inch Baltic birch, and the reason for that is that these dowels would just have a little bit more purchase in here, because the best way to make this would be to have a gap between 2 panels of exactly the exact same design so that this dowel can fit in far enough where it is super rigid. Right now, it is just resting in there, and that is a consideration if you're going to be making these. Obviously, you can make them a lot better if you double them up in size, so there's just more room for the dowel to slide in. Some of my keen-eyed viewers will have noticed that these pretty much are just peg hole like training climbing panels. So a peg like this, you would have 2 of them, and then you would have these panels straddling up the wall, and then you would be able to climb the wall up and down. Now, the normal size for a peg like that is 1 1/4 inch, and like I said, these are inch diameter dowels. So if you do end up getting the file pack, I will have the whole size for 1 1/4 inch and inch. The reason that I went with inch is because if you go to the home store to buy inch dowels, they're literally half the cost as 1 1/4 inch, and that's just because these are much more commonly used than 1 1/4 inch are anyways. There's a lot of options with these, not only for gear storage, but also with climbing. If you look up here, this is a climbing wall panel that I'm going to be making later in this month. This is all part of my Maketember series. If you're watching this in September, check out the link down in the description below because I'm giving away a ton of stuff, but I'm not going to talk about it in every single video. And then for these shelves, this is just some scrap cherry that I had laying around the shop, and I went ahead and put a 1/4 inch round over on these, as well as the panels, just so they would match a little bit, but also take away any type of harsh edges. I cut down a bunch of these dowels into different lengths. That way that you can hang a sleeping bag, which is the correct way to be able to store a sleeping bag long term, especially a down one. And then I can hang all of my backpacks and different pieces of gear all around here. And all of that combined makes the modular system. Obviously, they can be screwed onto the wall in a ton of different configurations to kind of match up with what you're looking to do. And more importantly, it really doesn't have to be used for camping stuff, but obviously with the REI vibe, it shows off your gear really well, especially if you have a good amount of space on your wall to be able to do so. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the 5 reasons why I specifically am not going to be selling this. It's really funny whenever I make something that I personally am very motivated by because I just want it in my house. I post it on Instagram, and then thankfully I've got people who really enjoy what I make, and they reach out and they say how much. The post has only been up on Instagram for like 4 hours at this point, and right now I would have about 8 orders. And I'm specifically turning all 8 of those orders down because of these 5 reasons. So reason number 1, which probably a lot of y'all have already thought about, is shipping, because I would offer this as a complete pack. Not only all 4 of these panels, but also all of these dowels, and then probably a few shelving units as well, just so that somebody could have everything all in one nice package. In order to get that to somebody, obviously you have to package that up. You can have it in 2 separate packages with all the dowels and then all of the boards, but then you've got 2 packages that have to make it instead of just 1. So I ran this through a pricing calculator. I just go onto Pirate Ship and then put in the dimensions and the weight, and from Atlanta to Wisconsin, this would cost $27 to ship, just the panels. An additional $13 if I were to be shipping this in 2 packages. And if I were to put all of this in a single package, this would be over $35 to be able to ship. Obviously, that's not a killer. You just add that into the pricing calculator. So you offer free shipping, but obviously people are paying for it regardless. People just like the notion of free shipping. So you've got your $12 panels and all of that added up. So the price is not really the thing that is dissuading me, because the customer is going to end up paying that at the end of the day. The thing that pushes me away from wanting to sell these in particular is because there is a high likelihood that they're going to be damaged on the way. Well, Hamilton, you just go ahead and you package things nicer. You spend more money on the packaging. Okay, you spend more money on the packaging, the end price goes up for the customer as well. Well, they're paying for the shipping, they're paying for the packaging, all those things are perfectly fine. I absolutely hate thinking about things getting to a client. Number 5, spoiler alert, is client satisfaction and customer success. We're gonna get to that in a little while. If you've watched the channel for a long time, I spend a lot of my time and effort making very small shippable items, because there is a very high likelihood that it's going to make it to the client undamaged, and if for some reason it does, it's really easy to go ahead and create another one of those things and ship it right out. Reason number 2, material size. Not the actual end result, which we will get into in a second, but the material that is used to be able to create these. So I use 4x8 sheets of plywood because my machine is a 4x4 machine. A lot of people use 5x5 Baltic birch plywood, but for me, I used 4x8. Thankfully, I use Peach State Lumber. If you're in the Atlanta area, they're the bomb, and they deliver it all the way to my driveway, which I then take off of their truck, put it onto the back of my truck, drive back to my shop, and unload. So like I said, with the amount of orders that I could have received today, I probably would have put in an order for about 12 sheets of plywood to be in my shop. Who's picking that up? Hamilton. Who's storing that? Hamilton. Who's helping Hamilton? Nobody. I absolutely hate plywood. I don't have a forklift. It's just old me. I've got to put it somewhere. Later during this Maketember event, I'm going to be having walnut plywood, which is very costly, but it looks great for the project that I used for it. I wore gloves. I was constantly wiping my face off so that I wouldn't sweat on it, because one drop of sweat really shows up in the final product, specifically with walnut plywood. There's so much to think about it. And the fact that I don't really have anywhere to store it, so I ended up just laying it down in the center of the shop so that it doesn't warp a ton, because I don't have a full vacuum table on my CNC machine. You're hearing me complain a whole lot. Get used to it, because all 5 of these are going to be me talking about things that I don't want to do, which makes it so that I do not want to sell these things. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, I'm just saying that I shouldn't. So for all that plywood showing up, it's not even the upfront cost of it, it's the fact that I have to move all that stuff around. I have to plan my shop and the other things that are going on around all this plywood. I stay away from plywood. I love working with hardwood lumber. That's me. Some people love working with plywood. Great. Not me. Okay, number 3 is material variability. And if you're working with Baltic birch plywood, there's very little variability in that. Is like the best plywood that you can get. These dowels are very variable. So these are an inch dowel. Now earlier I talked about if they were 1.25 inches, you could use them for the climbing hole peg, which would be the standard size of these, but these are 1 inch. You go to Home Depot, you pick up inch dowels, well they're 1 inch. No, they're not, because they're from Home Depot. They're going to be curvy, they're not going to be exactly 1 inch. You know what makes an exact inch? Your CNC machine. So all these are exactly 1 inch, and I didn't make them bigger because I don't want there to be a lot of slop in them. If you put this into the hole, the reason that it fits so well is because I've tapered the end on my sander. Between these and the ones that I haven't installed on yet, I've got 30 of these in all these different sizes. The second that this shows up to a client, this is the main thing that they're interacting with. So if they're putting this onto the board and then there's a ton of slop in it, or it's too tight and it won't go in, that is directly reflecting on how they think about your product. Obviously, that's a very easy thing to do. You spend the time, you taper them correctly, you make sure they're nice and sanded. These very ends, which I did not sand, you definitely should. And you make a nice, good finished product, especially something that they're going to be proud to show off to their friends, and you're going to be proud to be able to sell them. For me, that's a lot of extra steps that I personally do not want to do. Hamilton, you're complaining again. On to number 4. Okay, so we talked about material storage earlier. Let's talk about finished product storage, because these are actually pretty big. And the panels, yeah, they just stack on top of each other, so they're really not taking up that much space. Then you got to think about all of these dowels and then all of these pieces. Well, Hamilton, that's not that big of a deal. For me, I'm very thankful that these do not have to be finished. This is just raw plywood. No one's going to expect for these things to be finished. And honestly, they look better raw because, like I said earlier, it has that REI vibe. This plywood is looking great by itself. You don't even have to think about spraying anything on this or rubbing anything on this. It's a great product that's a huge positive that you're not having to finish it. But the negative is storing this, because when you have a client actually wanting to purchase your product that you're selling to them, you know how long they're going to want to wait? 2 days. Amazon has trained all of us to be able to receive something immediately after we get it. Sure, you can have something a little bit more bespoke, and you can offer that their name is engraved on it or something like that, and then automatically people assume, okay, this is handmade for me, it's going to take a little bit longer. They might be willing to wait a week or two. Most people aren't going to want to wait that long, so you're going to want to have product on hand, which means that you're going to have a lot of inventory. But like I said, if you've got a good product that sells itself, you put a post on Instagram, you have a few people reach out and say, hey, we want that. All of a sudden, you're able to have the money to be able to have a little bit of backlog and have it in the back of your shop to be able to ship whenever people do want it. For me, that's not what I want to get into. I don't want to have racks and racks of these things sitting around waiting to be sold, especially because it is a higher ticket item. Let's get into that. Realistically, these things cost $12 a panel for material purposes. And then these dowels are about $6 a piece. I cut up 6 dowels in total, so that's $36. And then that's $48 for all of that. What is that, $74? I don't know, somebody will correct me. And then like I said, the actual shipping cost on it is around $35. So let's just go ahead and say that's $110, and we haven't even talked about machining time. This should be done in 30 minutes, being able to cut out all of these panels and all the holes. The holes take a long time, I'll give it that. But I messed up my feeds and speeds, and I didn't notice because I was listening to a very good book, Lightbringer. If anybody has read it, so good. It's in the Red Rising series. But I was into the book, and I looked over like 45 minutes into it, and I was like, I'm not even halfway done. Yep, I set up my feeds and speeds completely wrong, and this took me 2 hours to cut out, which is utterly absurd for a Winfinity Elite series, but, you know, this should be done in 30 minutes. In my shop, I normally charge $1 a minute on the CNC, which covers all the shop cost in there. So let's just go ahead and say that this should be $150. Realistically, I would be charging around $250 for it. I would put it on my website for $249, and I think that that is a very good price for this. It leaves a lot of room in there for the potential people that are going to be receiving it damaged, which obviously you mitigate, and then a few other things to make sure that you are making a profit at the end of the day. So for $250, a lot of people just noped out of there. They said, oh, I'd never pay $250 for that. Do you know how much gear is on this wall right now? I'm not trying to flex, but I am saying that over the last 10 years, all of this right here in these little undescript bags, this is around $2,500. The people who are spending money on their camping gear are not going to flinch at $250 because they're able to show off their camping gear really well. If you're somebody who stumbled onto my channel who just loves camping and you're really confused right now because you clicked on this video and you just wanted to hear about climbing gears and you've been like, what is happening right now? This guy talking about selling them. Hi, I'm Hamilton Dilbeck. My channel revolves around selling things. Hopefully you don't hate capitalism like a lot of other people on my channel. Thing number 5, which is why I don't want to sell this, which is customer success. Customer success is directly dependent on your ability to be able to guide them in a way that makes it as easy as possible to install this on their wall. If you sell somebody a trinket, normally they're going to set it somewhere, and that's a trinket in their house. Right now you're selling somebody this, which installs onto their wall, which becomes in some ways a part of their home. So the ability to install this is going to rest on their shoulders. You can guide them all you want, but the truth is you don't know who's buying your product. Just the other day, me and my wife, we got a new little twin bed for our daughter. She's graduated from the crib. And instead of making it, I really wanted to support somebody in the community. So my wife and I found a small business that makes these little beds and stuff. And it's a cute little bed, but it is Baltic birch plywood. It's unfinished. It comes in a few different sections. You can tell that it's made on a CNC just like this because of the sections and how small they are. Maybe they did it for shipping. Let's not get into that right now. But it showed up. I unpacked it and I looked at it and I immediately felt bad for all of... I constantly these days am thinking about like the single moms out there and the things that they have to face alone, because being a parent is really difficult and I can't imagine doing it all alone. So I think about like my wife spending the amount of money that we spent all by herself. It shows up and then she has to deal with the kiddo running around, and then you've got this bed that you're trying to set up. And I personally think that she would have been defeated. You couldn't put it together with just a screwdriver. You certainly needed an impact driver. There were so many things working against you. I was able to put it together, but even with that, it was a little bit difficult, and I just kept on thinking, sheesh. If somebody who didn't know what they were doing got this product, they would immediately never tell anybody to buy it. Not because the product wasn't good, because the product's great. The end result is awesome. We absolutely love it. But the ability to put it together was so difficult. So when doing a project like this, you really want to make sure that not only you're designing a good product and it's something that looks really nice, but it's something that the customer can actually have success at. It took me 20 minutes to put this up on the wall. I didn't mark a single stud. I tapped along it and I knew where the stud was. That's a stupid skill that does come with time. Most people are going to have to mark an exact stud on their wall, and then they're going to have to put a line of painter's tape. Most people are not going to have a laser level that's going to help them line up all this stuff. So if you have a client and you're shipping this to them, you might be thinking, well, my side's over. In reality, it's where it's just begun, because you really want to give them too much information so they know at the end of the day that if they didn't install it correctly, that's on them and not you. You obviously want your customer to be very happy at the end of the day, so happy in fact that they go back to the website, they post a picture of their finished thing and say, hey, I love this, I would tell anybody to be able to buy this. So when you're thinking about selling things, always make sure that you're understanding that you're not the person installing that on the wall. The person who's installing that on the wall probably just has a screwdriver. So how would I tell somebody to install this who just has a screwdriver? I would tell them to invite a friend over who has an impact driver. This is all Maketember is going to be. It's going to be me talking about specific products that I think are incredibly viable, and then the positives, and sometimes like today, the negatives of what it takes in order to actually sell these things. Most of the time, it's not really about creating a great product. It's about creating a great ecosystem around it to be able to show people this is how it actually should look or could look. If I was taking product pictures for this, I would probably put it up in like 5 different configurations on the wall to show that these 4 panels can look so many different ways and can serve you in so many different ways. Maybe I'd take all of this up and only put fishing stuff. Maybe I'd install it in my garage, show it next to a car. There's a lot of different ways that you can sell things, and I am so stoked that y'all are showing up to my channel to watch from the Maketember series, because I've been thinking about this thing for so long. Thank you so much to my Patreon members. Y'all support means the world to me. I really appreciate it. Also, if you're brand new to the channel, this is when I talk about how long it took me to make this video. With the filming, with the editing, all of it, that is the exact number. Because at the very end of this year, I'm going to be adding up all of my videos through 2023, and then I'm going to put that against the Google AdSense that I've earned on this YouTube channel, and I'm going to find out the hourly rate of how much I made on YouTube. I actually have no idea how much it's going to be, but I'm very excited to find out. And early in January 2024, I'm going to be coming out with a YouTube video detailing all the finances behind this channel, how much it made, if I feel like it was a good number, all of my thoughts on YouTube itself. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and subscribe. Also, if you're watching this in September, I'm giving away a ton of tools. Go ahead and check down below at the What is Maketember video, and that will explain everything that you need to know. If somebody tells you that you've won in the comments below, don't believe them, because that's not me. Do you think this is viable? Do you think this is something that would sell? Do you think that this is something that you would sell? If you're interested in these files, both the DIY and the CNC are all in the same exact file pack, which can be found in the link below. Thank y'all very much. See you later. Bye.